What do you say, everybody? Cubs back in the win column thanks to Javier Assad's brilliance on the mound. Pete Crow-Armstrong, Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki, and the rest of the lineup looking like major league hitters once again. But the Cubs could not go a day without another bullpen injury, and the Cubs are back home. Pirates in town. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in the comments section. Give us a thumbs up. That's a great way of saying you love the Cubs like we love the Cubs. Let's get into it. And here is your invitation to our channel. What to say, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. Got a lot to get into today. The Cubs beat the Braves last night by a score of 7-1. Cubs jumped on Charlie Morton early. Javier Assad was great, and the Cubs rode the bats all the way to a win, and they split the road trip. We knew it was going to be a challenge going into Pittsburgh, facing Jared Jones and facing Paul Skeens, and then heading to Atlanta, a tough place to play against a really hard team to beat without some of your best players. But the Cubs able to get the last one of the road trip, head back home today with a little bit of momentum. But let's get into it. Javier Assad, brilliant once again. We've talked about it time and time again on this show, how much faith we have when Javier Assad gets on the mound. And we're in the middle of May now. He is still pitching to the tune of a 1.49 ERA, well south of 2.00, which means this guy should be in the all-star conversation. Javier Assad has been awesome. The Cubs really needed a stopper, and he delivered. 6 innings pitched, only allowed 4 hits and one walk, striking out 7. He got his 4th win of the season to move him to a perfect 4-0 on the year. Javier Assad, a huge reason why the Cubs were able to grab the win against Atlanta and take one game out of the series against the Braves. But the offense finally showed up, and there's a lot to dive into on the offensive side of things. And we're going to start with Hollywood Pete Crow-Armstrong. Awesome yesterday. Had a triple late, showing off the speed. Also had a bunt single. He drove in 2 runs, came around to score once. Pete Crow-Armstrong, and I know Mick has said it time and time again, is going to be a great big league player. He's going to be a guy that you turn on the Cubs game because you want to watch Pete Crow-Armstrong play. And we know the type of defense he provides in center field. He's probably a Gold Glove caliber defender the first day he stepped on a big league outfield. What we wanted to see and didn't see late last year was the offense. And ever since that home run against the Astros, on my birthday, I might add, he has looked so confident. He's got some swagger at the plate. And now he's just toying with pitchers, dropping a bunt down, hitting a triple. That speed plays. And he just impacts the game at so many different levels. And that's why it's been awesome to watch Pete Crow-Armstrong. And honestly, he's starting to prove that it's not just righties that he can hit off of. He started yesterday and 2 nights ago against the lefty, yesterday against Charlie Morton, and played well. So I think he's proving that he belongs here. When the whole team is healthy, I think Pete Crow-Armstrong has done enough to say, hey, I'm staying on the big league team. And I think he's more than deserving of that honor. But it wasn't just Pete Crow-Armstrong. The bats as a whole broke out, and it all started with Mike Tauchman, a leadoff home run to start the game, his 4th of the season. Then in the 8th inning, Seiya Suzuki went deep. Good to see him finally get rewarded on some of those hard hit balls. Cody Bellinger had 2 hits. Suzuki had 2 hits. Mike Tauchman had 2 hits. Nick Madrigal had 3 hits. And Pete Crow-Armstrong also had a pair. The Cubs as a team had 13 hits. The only 2 starters that did not get on base safely, Christopher Morel, who was 0 for 5, but he did have a sac fly in there, and Yan Gomes, who was 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. But the rest of the lineup finally showed up, scored 7 runs against a very talented team, and they did so without Nico Horner again. We mentioned it 2 nights ago. He was a late scratch with a tight hamstring. He got the day off yesterday to deal with that hamstring as well. But you might have noticed another H last name that was out of the lineup the last 2 nights, and not for an injury reason. Ian Happ, who was 0 for 3 on Monday with 3 strikeouts. He came up to bat in the ninth after Christopher Morel just worked a 13-pitch walk, and he lined a two-hopper for a 6-4-3 double play to run the Cubs out of that game on Monday night. He was benched on Tuesday. He was benched on Wednesday. Similar to the way the Cubs approached a struggling Seiya Suzuki last season, give him a few days on the bench. Watch the team grind it out while you're sitting on the bench because you haven't been good enough. Then, boom, you return to that lineup with a jolt of energy, and you're a big impact player. It happened with Suzuki last year. Since that moment, he's been one of the best hitters in the game. Here's to hoping it works the same for Ian Happ. But gutsy move by Craig Counsell. Honestly, Ian Happ is a leader on this team, and you're not healthy. Nico Horner's hurt. Dansby Swanson's hurt. Say Suzuki and Cody Bellinger are just getting back to the lineup. Christopher Morel has been banged up. You got Madrigal, Mastroboni, Yan Gomes, Amaya, all these guys that are struggling in their day in and day out. Happ's a guy whose production you need in that lineup. And Craig Counsell said, listen, you haven't been good enough lately. We're going to give some other guys some opportunities. And we talked about it. Crow-Armstrong, Mike Tauchman, definitely delivering in their opportunities. And he's saying, listen, Ian, you're a leader on this team. We need you to be great. But right now, take a rest and figure it out. And when you come back, be better than you've been. And I think we're going to see that probably at some point during this Pirates series or next week against Atlanta. But I like the move from Craig Counsell putting Happ on the bench. It shows that no matter who you are, if you're not producing, we can't play you. And I love that because that mindset is what wins teams championships. It doesn't matter if your name is Alex Rodriguez. If you're batting 170 over the last month and a half, we can't put you out there until you figure it out. And I think Ian Happ's going to get a chance to have some motivation, light a fire under his ass. And also, I think Ian Happ's a good enough player where a few days on the bench, recoup your thoughts, regroup, get your rhythm back, get your timing back. I think he's going to go on one of those streaks. We talk about him being a streaky hitter. He's got peaks, he's got valleys. He's definitely in one of the valleys now, but I think one of those peaks could be a little sooner rather than later. But we've started the show so far with all good news. The only issue is there is some bad news. The Cubs can't seem to go a day without having another bullpen piece injured. Yesterday, it was announced that Keegan Thompson is going to the 15-day injured list with a viral illness. Not sure if we've gotten any update on that. That's obviously something that's a little bit concerning, of course. And Luke Little, the Cubs left-hander, now the lone left-hander in the Cubs bullpen, was recalled. He did pitch last night. 1 inning, 1 strikeout, 1 walk. He was okay. It was good to see him out there. Ben Brown also relieved Javier Assad. He did give up 1 run, but struck out 3 in just 2 innings of work. So that's another guy who now seems to be pretty comfortable in his role as a bullpen piece. The Cubs had some options where they could have brought him into the rotation. I thought maybe today he would have started or at some point during this series because the Cubs have been so thin as of late. But I think Craig Counsell is committed to keeping Ben Brown as a factor and an elite factor in this bullpen. That's why Javier Assad got pushed up today. Justin Steele is going to go today against Jared Jones. Paul Skeens will pitch Friday against Kyle Hendricks. We'll get into that and the rest of the Pirates series a little bit later. But here's another guy. Brennan Davis has been absolutely raking in AAA Iowa. 5 home runs on the season, and 4 of them have come in the last 3 days. Brennan Davis is locked in at the plate, kind of re-emerging as a Cubs prospect. And you guys remember 2-3 years ago, he was the Cubs #1 or Cubs #2 prospect. So that's a guy whose reemergence could be key in the Cubs unfolding of roster moves this season. Now, obviously, you're loaded at outfielder at the major league level. We talked about Happ, who is struggling, but is a valuable big league piece. Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki, those are your starters, right? Well, you also got Mike Tauchman, who hit a leadoff homer yesterday and has been nothing but reliable with all these injuries. And Crow-Armstrong, who's is as exciting as any Cub on the team, who's also on the big league roster. Plus Alexander Canario, who's on the 40-man, just hit a grand slam for Iowa the other day and had a few big hits when he was up with the team this year. So that's at least 6 guys who are slotted ahead of Brennan Davis on the depth chart. But if he keeps hitting, one of 2 things are true. If you prove that you're just going to keep hitting, he's going to have to get called up eventually. Or could be used as a trade piece to get some more bullpen, which is what we saw the Cubs do with Jake Slaughter earlier in the week to acquire Tyson Miller. So Brennan Davis, Alexander Canario, even Kevin Alcantara, 3 guys to keep an eye on to potentially be involved in maybe some trades as we get a little bit closer to the deadline. Obviously, you'd like to see those guys have long and successful careers for the Cubs, but just as it stands right now, you're loaded with outfield and you need some help in the bullpen. So sometimes you got to get rid of one surplus to acquire some surplus somewhere else. I think Owen Casey's a guy that the Cubs view as untouchable. Pete Crow-Armstrong, I think, would also kind of be in that realm, but who knows? We've seen crazier things happen. But Brendan Davis kind of reemerging as a top Cubs prospect can only mean good things for the Cubs as they move forward. And talking about moving forward, we got a series that begins today. Justin Steele, with a 4.73 ERA, was really good his first 2 starts in a limited action. Should be fully stretched out and able to go 90 to 100 pitches today against the Pirates, but he did face the Pirates not too long ago, and Justin Steele wasn't particularly great. He gave up 6 runs, 3 of them via the long ball. Obviously, not what you like to see out of Justin Steele. He did have 2 walks, only 3 strikeouts in that start, but he said that he felt great, and I think that's a step moving forward. He gets another crack at these Pirates, and they'll be starting Jared Jones, who pitched against the Cubs in game 1 of the series, known kind of for his strikeouts. He pitched 6 innings, but allowed 7 hits and had 2 walks, so 9 base runners, and he only struck out 4. The Cubs were able to hit 1 long ball off of Jones as well. Cody Bellinger in the first inning took him deep. So it'll be interesting. You take that matchup, those guys that pitched in PNC last week, flip it over. Now they're pitching at Wrigley. Justin Steele gets a home start. Jared Jones on the road. Tomorrow, we've got Paul Skeens pitching against Kyle Hendricks, the biggest difference of fastball velocity in the league of any starting pitching duo that we've seen so far this year. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But it's Steele against Jones tonight at 6:40 p.m. Cubs get a chance to get back on track, turn that 1-game win against Atlanta yesterday into a win streak today against the Pirates. And that's what we're all going to be hoping to see. And hopefully watching Justin Steele get back on the right foot in this Cubs rotation that has been so successful, highlighted by Shota Imanaga and Javier Assad, who was brilliant last night. That's it for me. I'm Anthony Pasquale on Twitter @_AntPasquale3. Thank you guys always for jumping in and listening to us, talking some Cubs baseball with us. We love bringing everything Cubs to you guys every single day. Mick and I will be back with you guys tomorrow. But get in the comment section. Talk about which of those outfielders you think is most likely to get traded. Let us know if you think Nick Madrigal and Miles Mastrobuoni's offensive output is attainable. Let us know how you think Miles is doing at shortstop without Swanson and Nico. And if you think Craig Counsell benching Ian Happ has been a smart move so far. I guess we won't know until he gets back on the field. But thank you guys for listening. Again, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, ring the bell, and say go Cubs, because we can fly a W. Cubs won last night, and hopefully they do it again today. We'll talk to you soon.